So we are about done with the class, so we'll kind of review things. Let me share the screen. Get my wonderful floating meeting controls. Present. So I have put out the doodle poll. I saw a couple people have signed up already. This doodle poll is to have a 30-minute conference with me. It'll be Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Partly because Monday and Tuesday are just too crowded for me, and partly because I figured to give you time to finish peer review and then make any revisions and then meet with me. And depending on what you needed to do, I'm hoping that you will have done some revision after the peer review, and then maybe it'll be in a fantastic position without any need for revision at all. Although, you know, writing never changes. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about writing. You can always keep tinkering with it. I've been working on this review of another university, and we have to write up a report to submit to the agency. And every time I look at it, I think of some more things that I want to change and tinker. And at this point, it's mostly pretty small things, but it's, you know, it's what's so wonderful about the technology that lets us do that. The last class will be the last day of the semester. So here we are. We won't have a group class on Wednesday since we're doing the conferences. And I guess I could add the Zoom link here. Complete the peer review by April 28th. And then the final version is due this Sunday. And, you know, I'll certainly be willing to listen to requests for extensions if you need it. Most of you, I don't think, are going to need it. My goal in life as a teacher has always been to try to finish before finals week, which I almost never ever do, but I'm close to doing that this time. And for the final exam, it's actually going to be a reflection, and I'll be putting out the instructions in a little while. Since the exam is officially scheduled for Monday, May 10th, 10:30, that's when I'll make it due. But we won't actually have an in-class time. So actually, I could probably cross that out. So it'll just be due on 10:30 at Monday, or sometime on Monday. And certainly you can turn it in earlier, and there will be a Dropbox for that. Any questions about the schedule?
So
what I meant to say was we will have class. And I will think about how we can do it as a sort of celebration.
That's cool. I can see you changing the schedule from
Yeah.
I have a shortcut on my taskbar to the
Mm-hmm.
schedule, and I just click
Yes.
it and I'm there, and I can see you in there working on it.
Yeah. Google Docs is a really good thing to do for like group projects too, or like little competitions. Once I've done that, people trying to change things.
Yeah, it's good for
Um,
collaboration. Huh?
mhm. And so, as long as you've got internet, everything's wonderful. So, and of course, you can also see who's on there. Is that Aaliyah? Aaliyah, are you in here? I don't think so.
I think that's me.
What? Oh,
That's
Anna,
me.
the A. Okay. Um, so I thought we could kind of summarize things, and I have this article that I read that I would like us to look at and kind of use all our rhetorical concepts in talking about it. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the exam on style, particularly on the sections on parallelism, which you guys just made so complicated. So I asked you to look at the parallelism in a poster and also in Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. And I purposely did that because I wanted you to see the parallelism is important in both sort of literary and highly rhetorical things, and also in very practical writing. And in fact, in practical writing, technical writing, it's extremely important because it makes things easier to read and access. And has anybody taken the usability classes? No? Well, one of the basic principles about usability and technical writing, which you could cover in any of the technical writing courses as well, is this idea of making it really easy to access and to process. And parallelism is one of those ways to do that. So what this CDC poster, and I love CDC posters because they're good examples of these things and they're in the public domain. Oh, here it is. Might be a little bigger. They create, a sort of a structure always on all of them that is always parallel in many different ways. The way we're talking about is the sentence parallelism. So it's easy to process this because there are only one type of sentence that's in the whole document. They're all imperative sentences. And they all start with the verbs, which imperative sentences do, with the understand and you. Care, find, take, treat, take. So all I was expecting was that you would say something like, the title and all four boxes are in parallel sentence structure, imperative sentences starting with a verb. And what I said was explain what the grammatical structure is that the parallelism is built around. And everybody gave me all these complex, not everybody, but many of you gave me all these complex rhetorical figures as opposed to grammatical structures. And so all I was asking was the title, that's one set of parallelism. And then each box within has, each set box within has lists of things, and they're always in parallel structure. And so parallel structure almost always happens with lists, whether we're talking about government by, for, and of the people. It took a little longer to write this out, but each box's sentence contains parallelism. So you had take breaks to relax and to unwind, with the two in parentheses. And if you have a parallel structure, you can sometimes drop the repeated word. Just kind of depends whether it's clear or not. But so this list is parallel off the root of to. So anything you had after to relax, any other verbs would be infinitives. And then you have, through yoga, music, gardening, or new hobbies, we have objects of prepositions that are, so through is a preposition. And then we have just a list of nouns of different kinds of hobbies and activities. And take care of your body and get moving, that was to imperative. And then you have a infinitive that has the verb lesson, and then you have the object of lesson, fatigue, anxiety, or sadness. Treat yourself to healthy foods and get enough sleep. Sentences compound, two parallel, conjoined imperative sentence. Treat yourself, get enough sleep, and then find new ways to safely connect with family and friends. So with object of the preposition, and get support. So you have to look back, and it's to safely connect, to get support, and to share feelings. So anyway, that was kind of what I was expecting. And I got all these zeugmas and isopolectums and things that I had to look up. But I mean, a zeugma is a type of parallelism. So it's not wrong. I was just sort of surprised. And then with the Gettysburg Address parallelism, we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. And all of the different actors who read this do a great job of sort of showing us the parallelism. I'm going to do it with colored ink and highlighting. So one parallelism here is we resolve that. And then we have three subordinate clauses that come off the root of the verb resolve. We resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. So you have a list of three things you've resolved, and they're all in the exact same grammatical form. And that's what makes a parallel. And then we have a second set of parallelism. And I'd say almost everybody who noticed the that's, not everybody noticed the second set of parallelism, which is the most famous one. So we have off the root government, a prepositional phrase, and we have three prepositional phrases in a with a repetition of the noun, which is a type of one of them. I can't remember which. So this government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. And so did anybody know what was the repetition of the object of the same word at the end of the phrase? I saw several people put that in there.
It's not rhyme, is it?
It's not rhyme.
Okay.
Um, my brain can only hold a few of these complex concepts in at a time without homoiotolutin. Same.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, say that again.
And I know everybody who put it down, and several people put it down there. And I know those of you who put it down there must have looked it up. But it is under the schemes of parallelism. So it's just extra ways of being parallel. So why bother to do parallelism in literary and highly rhetorical things?
For the sake of bringing the audience into your sphere.
How does it do that?
Well, it's sort of a way of emphasis.
Yeah, it's definitely a way of emphasis. So it's, back to that word presence by, it forces you to, it's interesting, you kind of have to slow down as you read this. You can't just quickly go through all these clauses, for example, and you can't just quickly go through, well, I guess you can, but it asks you to slow down and think about the repetition and the difference between each one. So it's part of this idea of presence, of really bringing to the fore something that you really want to emphasize. The government of the people, by the people, and for the people is memorable, and that's something we all probably remember and think about. We may not know it comes from originally from the Gettysburg Address, and it may even come from sort of a modification of something in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. But it's this compact way of describing democracy, and so so we can kind of carry it with us, retain it. The particular parallelism in the first half, that these dead shall not have died in vain, is a very sort of high style. These long subordinate clauses here. That being the subordination, that we resolve that. And one of the things you could think about when you're checking parallelism is think of it as sort of, here's this word and there's 3 clauses that come off it. And should be in a parallel form. So several people mention zeugma, which is the yoking of parallelism around a single word. And like you could say that this is zeugma, that, because there's a repetition of the word that, but that's really not what zeugma is. What zeugma is a yoking around a single word and kind of using it in 2 different meanings, or 3 or 4 if you do it several times. And sometimes it's humorous. It's almost like a pun. Well, it has a pun often built in it. That is, you could create a pun out of that thing. So get a job and get a life. The farmer grew corn, grew potatoes, and grew bored. So there is a literal meaning of growing, and there is a more figurative meaning of growing. And it's certainly related, but it's not quite the same. He lost his hat and heart in San Francisco. So you can literally lose your hat, but you can't literally lose your heart. It's a figurative saying. But of course, we know what it means. But that is what zeugma is, where this same word lost in this case, grew in this case, get in this case, is sort of the yoking term that allows you to connect two different uses of that same word, usually literal and figurative. And it often has a humorous kind of effect, which is another way of getting attention to something and forcing people to pay attention. So, whoops, I think I need to, I'm not sure what I need to, I guess I didn't finish editing that one. So there's a country western song, if I tell you you have a beautiful body, will you hold it against me? So there is a implied zeugma in there. I guess what I meant to have is like a colon after zeugma here. Hold your body next to me, not against me. Actually, it's I guess the hold it against me is holding the body and then holding against. So I didn't come up with the right one yet. But you can see what I'm trying to say, that the verb hold has a literal sense, and then this more figurative sense where we say something is, we hold something against somebody. And, you know, you can see where it probably has the root of physically holding this against them, and you know, maybe I'm going to physically attack somebody or whatever. But it's not literally that way. So, any questions about that? I'm going to try to learn that other word, homeo, whatever.
I know. I was gonna. That was on my list of things to ask you about.
Homolotolutin. That's the same ending, and so the word homo has one in it. That's maybe how you can relate. I mean, I'll only be able to remember.
It's
and
hard
then,
to, it's hard. Even when you're looking right at it, it's hard to write or reproduce.
yes, and I don't know how to pronounce it. Look up something that we pronounce. And then the isocolon is the example, apparently, is the example of the people, by the people, for the people that they actually give in the book. And in a way, it's the classic definition of a parallel structure. So anyway, all these use of terms like isocolon, homolutin were great. They weren't wrong. I was just surprised. Comments or questions? Okay, copy link address. I'm going to put an article in the chat. And I'd like everybody to open it up. I am going to, good, thank you, Morgan. I'm going to make the whole class be a breakout room separate from me. And we're going to talk about this piece. Well, I'm going to ask you to talk about it as a small group about this piece, thinking about each of the things that we had been talking about. We're going to start with style. We're going to work backwards. So we're going to start with talking about the style and what kinds of figures you see, what kind of, what you could say about style. I particularly noticed this and thought about bringing it to class because I noticed how much metaphoric language was being used in it. So, and I just thought that was kind of interesting that in describing something like this, metaphor was so prevalent. But maybe, a lot of the metaphor theorists point out how metaphor is so much part of our language. We don't even notice how much metaphor is part of our language. So I'm going to create into a group, and what I'm going to give you, 10, 15 minutes. I want you to actually, you'll have to spend a little time reading, but I want you to start with just thinking about things that it has to say about style. Not say about style, but things that it's use of style. And you can start with the metaphors and any other figures, and then think about style more generally if you want. So let me create this breakout room. There it is. So it starts with a quotation from Susan Orlean. She talked in an interview. Then there's kind of a summary of what she said.
There's a lot of quotes throughout the whole article.
Mm-hmm. It's quotes from what kinds of sources? So so you have Susan Orlean from the telephone, and then you have a sort of a summary with the author's point of view, has left many of us feeling like burned out husks. And this one, what time is it? What day is it? What did we do in October? This is her, moving direct, not talking so much about people like Susan Orlean, but herself. Just recently, I found myself spent half an hour struggling to retrieve a word from the faulty memory system, another metaphor, that has replaced my pre-pandemic brain. Institution, that was the word. Sometimes when I try to write a simple email, I feel I'm just pushing disjointed words around like peas on a plate. And then malaise, burnout, depression, and stress. All of those are up considerably, said Todd Katz, Executive Vice President and Head of Group Benefits at MetLife. The company's most recent employee benefit trends study conducted in December, January, found that workers across the board felt markedly worse. The study was based on interviews, blah, blah, blah. What kind of quote was this? So here's somebody who's done another interview, a series of things, collecting lots and lots of people's points of view. They did interviews with 2,651 employees at MetLife, which is an insurance company and also gigantic. And so they, for both in terms of insurance issues, I would think, and also just for employee stuff, they did such a thing. And then we go back to another set of research, the Household Pulse Survey by the CDC. And and then we go back to a personal experience from the interviews, from the survey from the New York Times. Responding to a request by the New York Times for their work. So those two paragraphs are New York Times. Now we have, none of that is surprising, said Margaret Warenberg, an expert on anxiety and author of the book Pandemic Anxiety. So let's talk about the structure we've seen here. There is a writer's response, the author's response, Sarah Lyle, then a large interview survey, then a CDC survey, then back to an example from the New York Times study, then an expert on the pandemic anxiety, back to the Times questions, to an interview, back to an expert. So how is it being organized? I mean, just literally, how is it being organized?
Like she consistently incorporates quotes.
Right.
Yeah, it's an accumulation.
It is sort of an accumulation. So we talk about structure. You have Susan Orlean, the author, I haven't really learned how to navigate this thing very well. Susan Orlean, the author, the MetLife interviews, it's large scale.
Oh, so yeah, it's like a progressive structure.
Okay, and so there's two types of progressive structures, syllogistic and qualitative. Which one is this? Is there a logic?
Yeah, there is, but to me, it feels more qualitative.
Yep. So basically, it's just kind of going from one kind of sense of the problem, and then it's definitely different types of interviews or quotations, because she's a journalist after all. And she's going back and forth between individual stories and large scale surveys and experts. So you hear this complaint or this rant. Was it Morgan or that said that before, rant?
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, okay. So it's kind of like a random, we're all moaning about how terrible it is. And if the piece appeals to you, then you are the us that she's writing to, and she's trying to draw us in. And if you're I mean, I was drawn in and I thought, yeah, that is just how I feel, like pushing peas around on a plate. Words pushing peas around on a plate. I'm in quicksand. I've told somebody I feel like I'm in cement. What time is it? What day is it? What did we do in October? How many Zoom meetings have I had today? But, so it's definitely drawing in, and you're feeling a lot like these examples here. And then you get something like that. None of that is surprising, said Margaret Werenberg, an expert on anxiety and the author of the book. A year of uncertainty, of being whipsawed, another metaphor, between anxiety and depression, of seeing expert predictions wither away and goalposts shift, another metaphor has left many people feeling they're existing in a kind of fog. So yeah, it's a really interesting structure that way. So it just kind of alternates. I don't mean that. The structure is alternating between individual stories and large scale surveys and experts, and basically all saying the same thing. I wouldn't say that we get anywhere from this, although at the end we do have an attempt to have a conclusion, like, so we're describing a problem. The classic ending of a piece that describes a problem is solution. On our questionnaire, we asked how people have tried to combat their feelings of malaise. Some are meditating, turning to alcohol or edibles, walking, making the bed, re-engaging with a spiritual practice. Parentheses. I've come to rely very much on the story of the Exodus, the clergy person wrote. But in general, your guess for how to make this strange period easier is as good as anyone's. I don't know, one person wrote. If you find out, tell me. So it definitely does not end with the sense that they have come to a logical conclusion about, how to solve this problem. You can imagine there's somebody else out there writing that piece, but this piece is definitely just, let's all vent together about what a life, that's the word, vent, I think. So then let's go back to the first thing we talked about, and that is rhetorical situation and kairos. How is that relevant in this piece?
Anna?
Oh, come on, don't rely on her.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, everyone's feeling the same way, whether you're working or you're a student or you're teaching, or, I mean, everyone's exhausted and worn out and ready to just, I don't know.
So this is from a Sunday magazine of the New York Times, a newspaper, which is of course a city newspaper, but it's a very broad newspaper that pretty much has audiences across the country. My father's from New York, so we grew up with the New York Times. So I sometimes get the New York Times, but I particularly read this in my sister-in-law's New York Times, also from New York. But it's a national newspaper, and it's a magazine section. It's not so much the news section. So the magazine section tends to be light. It's not heavy opinions, and it's not going to be strictly news. And it's the place where they put essays and creative nonfiction of a variety of sorts, just kind of interest things. And it's actually in a magazine format so that you can actually keep it on your coffee table for week and read through it so much. So that's something about the form of it. And it's clearly, they clearly every week think about what's the most important things we should talk about. And so at this point, they decided to talk about that. How does this work to connect to the audience? We talked a little bit about that already, but.
Well, it provides specific examples of like, whether it be like struggling to write or be enthusiastic or just kind of like overall stress or anxiety, just like specific examples that the audience can relate to.
So examples, why all this metaphor? Why talk about, I struggle to write and move the words on the page like peas on a plate?
Well, a lot of what we're experiencing, it puts us in uncharted waters, and it's really difficult to really put a fine point on a lot of things.
Yeah. So metaphor helps us. I mean, it captures the feeling, even if we're not quite sure what the literal terminology would be.
Mhm.
Although they do have some literal terminology like anhedia, which I appreciated that they defined. Remember, yes. When people are, and this was from a expert, when people are under a long period of chronic unpredictable stress, they develop behavioral anhedonia. You see the hedonist root in there, and then an is the negative, meaning the loss of the ability to take pleasure in their activities. And so we have all these metaphors describing that, but we also here have this official scientific definition from the psychologists. And here, you know, they get lethargic, they show a lack of interest, and obviously that plays a huge role in productivity. Very straightforward, typical words. Not as interesting as all these metaphors and examples, but, you know, definitely captures the whole thing. Okay, so it is 1:30, and if you get a chance, read the comments about this article, because not everybody liked this article. And I thought that it was interesting. And actually it suggests one thing. We didn't talk about the argument, but she is writing, she continually says, everyone has hit the wall. You know, we all feel terrible. And so, and one of the comments is, no, we don't all feel terrible. I actually have liked this year. You know, I've liked the freedom to not have to go into work. And somebody then said, well, maybe it would have been fine if she just said almost everyone. And that is an example of Toulmin's qualifier. Remember back with Toulmin that there, you know, you make a claim based on a reason, and then you can modulate it by adding a qualifier and saying almost everyone is, you know, hitting the wall with because of the pandemic is a qualifier. And it might be a wise move to do with an audience, because in fact, whenever you say everyone, you're always at risk, because there's always going to be one example who doesn't fit the everyone. And, you know, depending on how argumentative people are, they'll call you on it. What is your plant?
Oh, I've got I've got a chocolate mint plant. don't know.
Oh, I've had those are good. That looks like it's growing well.
Yeah, I have the little water bulb things because I have to leave it. I have to leave it for 3 weeks to survive on its own. And same with the tree behind me. I have water bulbs and everything, so hopefully they're still alive when I get back home.
Aw.
Does it drip water at a set rate or something?
Well, theoretically, the soil just sort of wicks out the moisture, wicks out the water from the bulbs as it needs it. But they're always all empty when I come home. But they've been alive so far.
I was given a what's called an arrow planter or something. It's kind of like a Keurig for plants. And it's this container with water in it, and then but it pumps the water through the thing, and then on top of it there's these 3 holes, and you stick this little Keurig of plant seed. I call it it looks like a Keurig capsule of plant seeds down in it, and the water is pumping, and then it has a light on top, so it's that's on a timer. It's really cool. I'll send you all a picture later.
Okay.
And every week I take a new picture. In fact, Mondays are my day to take a picture. And I now have a basil plant about this tall, and parsley's the smallest, and dill really tall. So. Okay, everybody. So sign up for your conference. I saw actually Anna did, the rest of you, it's on the announcements page and pushed out to your email. And,
can I ask you 2 questions?
Yes.
Before you escape?
I will create a Zoom invite for that conference and send it to you. But go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you could sort of review the goals that we should have for our review meetings, and sort of like some sort of a protocol guideline for our review meetings, because we're not exactly sure what. No, with the
with each other.
Yeah, because we weren't really exactly sure what we're trying to accomplish beyond the reviewing that we're already doing in writing.
Well, I kind of talked about that last class on Monday. So the idea would be to, think about the criteria of the paper and just help each other basically achieve those criteria. And, if are you planning on meeting in person, or just doing it as a Google commenting?
Well, we were thinking that we might ask you to create a Zoom room.
Okay. Just email me what you need and I will do that.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that, and I will let whoever it is be the host, and then, that should allow you to go into it whether I'm there or not. And I can make it for a really open-ended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could even make just one. Well, no, I think it's better for just contact me what you need.
Okay. Or yeah, you could just make one room, and there's just going to be one group occupying it at a time. It's not very likely that we'll overlap.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me what you need. What I need to do is enable somebody to be the host in my absence.
Yeah, you could make Heather the host, and that would just solve that.
Okay.
Heather, I forget exactly her last name. It starts with
I
an
think it's-
S.
I think it's Stockard, Heather Stockard.
Yeah,
Something like that. But yeah, I think she would be okay with hosting.
okay. I'll do that right after class and
Okay.
send you an invite. I'll make it really open-ended time and you can
Mhm.
work out whenever it is that you're doing it.
Okay.
And
Thank
then if somebody else, not Heather, not including Heather, wants to do a meeting, then they should contact me. And I'll put this in the announcement. They should contact me and so I can let them be the host.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Anything else? All righty. Bye.
See you soon. Bye bye. Thank you.